Um, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and Shalom to the sincere Akim spreading this truth in sincerity. Shalom. So in this video, I want to, basically pinpoint something, in Romans chapter 9, which, you know, it's like, you know, because sometimes you be having these conversations, right, with people that are from the Islamic, faith, that have that belief, in Islam. And quite often, you know, when you try to point them out, like, yeah, even though Abraham, he had multiple children, the only children to be considered his children are the ones that come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then you have them, yeah, but isn't he still a child? Wasn't he, also a son of, Abraham? You know, this, that, and the third, and it's like, they come with these arguments that, like, as a human, as a person, you know that will be an argument that you'd be like, yeah, of course. But we're dealing with the Heavenly Father who already, made choices, before, these men were already born. It had already been established like that, how everything would go and how everything would, like, um, I would say that on, would basically come to pass, right? You know, because the scriptures that I'm about to read in Romans chapter 9, they're gonna yet again pinpoint, to a specific, to a specific, like a specific lineage, man. Going from a specific man to another specific man to another specific man. And you know one of the things that all these other religions have in common is this, that they accept all mankind. But when we consider the truth of Yahweh Shem Shai, the Heavenly Father, he is racist, man. He prefers his own people. And truth be told, his own people in this day and age look like, all mankind, to say it like that. But their lineage still goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob according to their father's seed line, right? And like, we oftentimes we bring out, I think it was, what is it, Malachi 1:5 or Amos 1:5? I think it's Amos 1:5. Is it? No. Let me see where it is though. Habakkuk 1:5. Yeah, man. Habakkuk 1:5. Behold ye among the heathen and regard and wonder marvelously, for I will work a work in your days which ye will not believe, though it be told you. So, telling the people that the Heavenly Father is only dealing with the nation of Israel, that, the children that are, or the child that is considered to be Abraham's child is Isaac, and then, the promise goes from Isaac to Jacob. When we tell that unto the people, they put in their emotions, man. Yeah, but they're still there. their child. They're still their this, that, and the third. But it doesn't really matter in the end, man, because even parents, you know, they have a favorite child if they have multiple children. You know, even single individuals, they have a favorite pair of shoes, a favorite type of jeans, a favorite, you know, the type of t-shirt. They have a favorite thing, but when it would concern the scriptures, then, they want to basically say that the Heavenly Father cannot have a favorite people, that He favors above, the rest upon the earth. Then that is something to be, you know, unfair. But, without any further ado, I actually want to, delve into Romans chapter 9, man. So this is Romans chapter 9, and verse 6. It says, "Not as though the word of the Most High hath taken none effect, for they are not all Israel, which are of Israel." And the Israel that the Heavenly Father is actually, dealing with is the Israel of the Most High, which is the elect, the ones that are, doing His will, right? Because you have people out there that, yeah, that belong to the nation of Israel as a people, as part of their nationality, but they don't act accordingly. So the Heavenly Father is not dealing with them, nor considering them, to be His people. He considers them to be heathens, because, they did not mend their ways. They're still, stuck in the way of the heathen, right? You see, so reading on, it says, "For 7, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called." So Isaac, he had multiple children, man. He had a child with Hagar, which is, Ishmael. He had a child with Sarah, which is Isaac. And he had children as well with Keturah. You know, so he has, multiple children roaming around upon this earth. Of whom basically came nations, man. Nations upon this earth, and when you really would consider the amount of people that our forefather Abraham has brought forth, you know I can only imagine, and that is just me, as a man thinking out loud, right? I can only imagine that the majority of the world populace, you know would actually, be, children of Abraham. That's only something that I will be able to measure like that. I would not think that's strange, right? We know that Moab has a lot of people, you know, but when you would combine the nation of Israel, you know, you would combine, even the Edomites, because Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Jacob, and Esau, and then from Jacob you had all the, all the tribes coming out of that, then you would consider like that's a very large populace, man, you know. But it says, "For 790, because they are the seed of Abraham, are they all children." So yeah, Abraham has a lot of children, but they are not all considered, to be the children of Abraham, because the children of Abraham that are considered to be his children, are basically the children according to the promise, right? And that will be Isaac. It says, "But in Isaac shall thy seed be called," man. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of the Most High. Which that is basically, another way of saying, you know, Ishmael and his descendants. But the children of the promise are counted for the seed. You know, the promise, man. You know, the thing that was already aforetime, you know, established as an agreement, you know, between Abraham and the Most High. You know, and when you think about this, you can also use it as an analogy, you know, for those, you know, that are basically foreordained, you know, to come into the truth, you know, to not only be called, but to be also, you know, chosen, right? You know, because through that, you know, you have those that are according to the flesh, they're Israelites, but they, you know, are not according to the promise, you know, being brought back into the fold in these latter days, right? You know what I mean? So it says, verse 9, for this is the word of promise, at this time will I come and Sarah shall have a son. So this goes back to Genesis, right? The account of Genesis where, you know, the angel came unto, you know, our forefather Abraham, you know, and his wife Sarah, you know, and he basically told him, like, next year you're going to have a son, you know, with Sarah, you know, that was promised, you know, unto them, right? Verse 10, and not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by her father Isaac. So yet again, another promise was being made, or another thing was established. Verse 11, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of the Most High according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. You see, so now it's talking about Esau and Jacob. Even though Esau came out first, the Heavenly Father dealt with Jacob, right? Because the promise is given unto our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and, you know, Jacob, you know, whose name was changed into Israel. You know, he's the patriarch of the nation of Israel. So he brought forth, you know, sons, and that those sons became nations within themselves. You know, it was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. So usually it's going to be like the elder is going to receive the promises, right? You know, and the blessings and the heritage. And but in this case, it was established that it would be Jacob who was born, you know, as the second child. Verse 13, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with the Most High? The Most High forbid. So the way that the Heavenly Father established this, right? Is that unfair, or is that just how the Heavenly Father is able to deal with, you know, the things that He established, created, directed, you know, even because we are actually living in His movie, right? You see? So yeah. Verse 15, for he said to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So the Heavenly Father basically, you know, does as he pleases, man. You know, he does what he wants. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of the Most High that showed mercy. So it's the Heavenly Father, man, that decides all these things. You know? Which that is very beautiful, man. So, you know, when you think about it, no matter what a man in this truth goes through, you know, or, you know, does, you know, of course, you know, we might consider certain bounds, you know, certain boundaries and things like that, you know, which we're gonna, you know, say like, hey, of course, within these boundaries, but still, it's the Heavenly Father at the end, you know, that shows mercy and that decides what's gonna happen, man. Because the Most High that justifies in the end. You see, but basically to make my point is that when it concerns the promises, when it concerns the children that the Heavenly Father is dealing with, you know, this pertains to a particular line that the Heavenly Father dealt with accordingly, man. And not because our forefather Abraham had multiple children, does mean that those children, you know, are actually any, you know, have any special thing in particular, man. You know, we do know that the Ishmaelites, they have been blessed. They are a blessed nation. even in these days, having certain luxuries. We know that the Edomites are actually cursed, even though they are in a very blessed situation right now. Their blessing and their curse is that double-edged sword, man, which that is going to be recompensed upon their own heads. And when it concerns these other children, the children, begotten with Keturah, we don't really know, too much about that. You know, we do know that, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are a blessed people, even though it doesn't look like it right now. You see? But those are the people that the Heavenly Father is actually dealing with, right? And when you try to, explain this to people that believe in the Islamic faith, they don't really want to hear it, man. But it's okay. Shall their, unbelief make the faith of the Most High without effect? The Most High forbid. Just because these people don't believe doesn't mean that it ain't going to happen. It's still going to happen, no matter what they believe, right? So yeah, with that, I do hope and pray that this video was edifying. And with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, who teach and rule well, and Shalom to the sincere Akim, spreading this truth and sincerity. Shalom.